Folks, welcome to another edition of Real Estate Experts. As always, I'm your host, Glenn Twiddle, bringing you leading experts from around the country and around the world to help you traverse the landscape of the Australian property market. Whether that's building wealth through property, whether that's getting top dollar for your home if you're going to sell it, whatever it is, if it's property, we've got you covered. And today, I'm dealing with a very special guest. I've managed to talk her onto the couch here, and she is a serial investor herself. She's an author of multiple books on various subjects. Hired gun negotiator. I mean, what this woman hasn't done isn't worth doing, especially when it comes to property. I'm talking about none other than Jan Tomelty. Jan, thanks so much for catching up.
Thanks for having me, Glenn. Great to be here.
Wow. Now, before we get on to some of the stuff that I'm here to pick your brain about your new book, I wanted to talk to you about, I suppose, some of the things you've written about in the past. I mean, everything that you're passionate about, you seem to have written the book on the subject, whether that's helping cancer victims kind of traverse that landscape, helping clear some of the myths around, of all things, Botox and things like that. You're a walker that has done some of the most difficult and famous walks on the planet. What you haven't done isn't worth doing. You've certainly lived a full life, but tell us about what has fueled that kind of varied interests and how you seem to have become an expert in all those areas.
A good question, Glenn. Probably for me, whatever I get involved in, I get very passionate about the people aspect of it. And so from my years of working in sales and training in the pharmaceutical industry, in the cancer arena, it was not so much selling the product, though that was important. It was about dealing with the people who were receiving the product. So at the end of the day, it's a very emotional, very stressful lifetime. And so I just wanted to try and give them some simple, easy to understand information which really just helped them get through and understand the process.
Yeah.
So, and that's really sort of moved on to each time that I've written a book. Same in the cosmetic industry, the myths surrounding Botox. And really, at the end of the day, is it really what people say, or is there more to it? And so, and then of course in the real estate arena, which is I'm very passionate about and have been involved with for a very long time. My father had his own real estate business. We would always be spending time in the evening listening to him talking about his day, and which led to me buying multiple properties over the years, and then sort of finally in the business myself for the last few years now.
Yeah, and tell me about, because all of those industries that you've become expert in, they all seem to have misconceptions about them. They all seem to have a lot of emotion tied up in them, whether it's cancer or whether it's how one presents themselves. Even the word Botox has connotations that bring up emotions in people. Some people may be mocking, and some, just various to and fro. Yeah. Some people love it, some people frown upon it, etc. Similarly, your current, and lifetime business, both as a consumer, as a kid, then as a consumer, and now as a practitioner and author and expert on the subject. So it's interesting that those emotions, you seem to be a master of taking subjects that are highly emotive and cutting through that to helping people.
Well, most people only buy or sell real estate a number of times in their entire lifetime. So it's a very emotional side, a very emotional experience for them. And so my goal really is to get out there and to meet people so they can get to know me and trust me and understand the process long before they even need to sell or buy their home. And so for me, that is probably the driving force behind what I like to do in my real estate career, and that is to make that whole process more easily navigated and not quite so stressful. There'll always be stresses, but at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be as stressful as it can sometimes be.
And tell me about, as a consumer of multiple properties yourself, buying, investing, building them up and building your own portfolio as an investor, what did you see in the real estate industry from other agents out there in that vocation that led you to write this book on maximising top dollar for your property? Did you see any horror stories? Because oftentimes on the couch here, it was the industry as a whole doing it maybe not as good as they could that led some of my guests to either write books or do speeches or whatever to help consumers do it better. What was your experience with the industry as large as a consumer?
As a consumer, I have to say I met some good agents, and I also met some very bad agents. And basically what I'm trying to do in my book your agent before you even need an agent, is to let people know that there are choices out there. And so the interesting thing is that if we were to think of our teachers at school, we had some good teachers and we had some not so good teachers. Same with real estate agents. There are some good ones and there are some not so good ones. But if you take a little bit of time before the pressure's on of buying or selling to get to know your local agent, then the decision's a little bit easier and you know more about that agent as a person rather than just as an agent.
Yeah, it's good advice, because I tell you, a lot of times people do assume that all agents are created equal, and they choose them based on criteria like how much they charge and other criteria that are not the ones that are going to find them the one that's the good one out of the sea of the ones that are kind of almost a sea of sameness, one might.
Well, that's right. And really, it's not hard to be nice. And
you'd think it's par for the course, though.
Well, you would think so. But there was a very interesting study in southeast Queensland not so very long ago where 150 agents were mystery shopped at their open homes to see if they, how they ranked on various markers, if you like, by people who went as buyers. So in that, the results of that were not really terribly flattering to the real estate agent. A third of them were not even nice to the buyers.
Wow,
and
that
two-thirds didn't even follow up.
Wow.
So for me, respect for everyone that I deal with is very, very important. And my whole home open experience is very, very important as well. So anyone who comes into my open home, whether it's a neighbour just wanting a nosy, which is absolutely fine, or someone who's doing research, or an active buyer, everyone deserves respect. Everyone deserves to be asked if you can be of service, and everyone deserves a follow-up, because a couple of days later, you may have more questions about that property, or you might want to ask the agent questions about themselves and their business.
So tell me then, if our viewers out there are looking for, the Jan Tomelty of their area, say we've got a viewer in Sydney or Brisbane or, wherever they might be watching this episode, and they're looking for an agent that, that is good, that does have your ethics and things, what are some of the things that they should be on the lookout for at that open house? It still staggers me that being nice and getting a follow-up call are two of them, heaven forbid, and that they're not just going to get that as a matter of procedure. That staggers me. But what else can we be on the lookout for? What are one or two things that we could identify at that open that would show us we're dealing with a Jan Tomelty rather than an ordinary agent?
Well, probably presentation, not only of the home and certainly the marketing campaign, and also what the agents offer within the home that's open for inspection, as in information, not just on the property but on the business, to help them in their search across the board. But also the presentation of the agent as well. And communication is always the number one thing everyone complains about, but it also seems to be the number one thing people forget about as well.
Clearly, if a third of them aren't nice, they're not communicating well, and if two-thirds of them aren't following up, period, I think we could do with that advice. They should be watching this interview, agents.
That's right. And also, an agent who's on the telephone when people come into the open home is very disrespectful, very rude. There's a time and a place to make your calls, but at the end of the day, if you're in an open home, that is the time you focus on the people who have been good enough to give you their time to come through the home. And certainly for the sellers, they want feedback. They want to know how the open home went. They don't want to just hear that you've been a tour guide and that you've had 3 groups through, no further interest. It's important feedback for the sellers. They're paying for our services and we have to prove that we're worth what they're paying. Yeah,
it sounds like that'd be a very good exercise for our viewers, is mystery shop 3 or 4 agents that they might have been considering and see who stands out. So very cool. And you mentioned marketing in passing, but I know a lot of our viewers ask, these agents, they all just ask for a $20,000 check for marketing and things like that. Tell us about the importance of marketing and what would identify good marketing when we do go to an open home. Because when I've been there, I've seen everything from a black and white photocopied brochure to a business card and nothing else, to some nice elaborate packaging. But tell me, where would that sweet spot sit?
Well, the investment that a seller puts into marketing their property is significant in the fact that it has a very broad and significant effect on those who look at it. So the internet, the presence has to be very, very sharp and quality. The handouts you give out at an open home need to be of good quality, like you say, not just a black and white photocopy, here you go, here are the rates, etc., etc. So the overall presentation of all of that has to marry into a campaign that really is worth the property's respect. So if you have a cheap campaign, people are going to think, well, it's not even worth going and having a look at the property.
Yeah.
Most buyers actually make up their mind whether or not they will go and even look at a property based on the internet and how it presents online. And sometimes they might come in and say, well, the rooms are a lot smaller or a lot bigger than they look online. Or, oh, I'm really glad I came along because online I wasn't really that taken with the property, but I can see now it's actually a terrific property. So we need to get them in the door. That's what the marketing campaign is for, and we need to get it across a broad spectrum of buyers as well.
Can you tell me about this? Something just popped into my mind, and this is me being a little bit revealing, a little bit selfish, but when I see poor marketing campaigns, as a buyer, I kind of rub my hands together because I'm pretty sure I can go and get that property for far less money. Is there a correlation? Am I the exception to the rule? Do investors who want to steal a property and buy one cheap look for agents with poor marketing skills to put their low offers in? Or am I the only one who kind of does that?
No, I don't think you're the only one, Glenn. I think that's probably quite a common misperception of people, and that is that we do judge books by their covers, and we do judge agents by their appearance sometimes, and we do judge properties by their internet exposure as well. But so I don't think you're alone, and that is why I am very, very particular about how my marketing campaigns process, and we have a very strict process in structuring those campaigns, and before they actually even go online, because there are people out there that look for opportunities, but you have to be very upfront, very in your face with this campaign, because it's what the seller needs. It's their pride and joy. It's their generally it's their biggest asset that they will ever own.
Yeah.
And so everything that they make from the sale of this property is significant to them.
And it's interesting that, you know, for someone who's an investor like mine, see, I'm always after buying well. So it's almost like I don't want to buy from a skilled agent like a Jan. I want to buy from the less than skilled agent, but I'm not the buyer that you should want either. You should want that emotional buyer that's going to pay that premium, like you've got a reputation of doing, of getting those premium prices. Tell me about that. Tell me about how an agent can get more money for the same product through negotiation skills and through a specific system like you've got, because that would relate directly to, you know, some agents charging more than others. Can you speak to that? How much an agent costs in paying for their fee versus that price they end up getting?
Yes, certainly. I would say, for me personally, I spend a lot of money in training every year. Training not just in making sure that all my marketing campaigns are in the minute of what's available technologically speaking, but also for me in my personal growth and development in regard to negotiation particularly. So if your agent is worth their salt, then you're going to find that from the time you sit down and chat with them, you're going to feel that you would be comfortable talking and working with this agent. You would be happy that your buyers would be comfortable talking with this agent. And so therefore, all wrapped in together, paying a few, let's say maybe an extra $4,000 overall for fees for a particular agent is generally well and truly exceeded in the prices that this agent can draw out of the buyers. So buyers generally are very logical when they start to look at a house. But the minute they fall in love with it, they're very emotional. And that is when, as a very good agent with a strict process, you can actually walk these buyers through on a very confident, respectful and successful journey of getting every last dollar out of them that they can squeeze out.
I love it. It's almost like, because I know that, the way you do have such an amazing rapport with buyers from the success stories I've seen of yours with people raving about your skill, that it's almost like you're a smiling assassin with the buyers, because that's your job. Your job isn't to represent those buyers and get them the best deal. Your job is to get the seller the most money at the expense, I suppose, of the buyers, but the buyers seem to be smiling while they pay it. Is that luck, or is that a formula?
Oh, look, it's definitely a formula, because that is important. But it's also, I think they know that I actually truly care. If they have fallen in love with a property and they really want to live there with their family, and they're talking about at least the next 5 years, if not many years more than that, then a couple of $1,000 extra out of their pocket now is going to be money very well spent as they enjoy living in that home. And so that is my job, to put it all into perspective for them, because really a couple of $1,000 to live in the house that you're in love with and that would suit your family's living, it's really not a lot to spend.
Wow, I tell you, I'm just so glad as an investor there's so few Jan Tomeltys out there, and there's so many of the other. Because you're right, you would take advantage of, because I'm a very emotional person. I would pay more when I fall in love with the property, especially when you walk me through it like you've just discussed. You just mentioned staying current with emerging technologies, and I've seen some of your marketing online, things like social media and social networks and things of that nature. Can you speak to the difference of marketing a property now in today's market versus, some 10 years ago, perhaps even when you were buying your properties, when you would go to maybe the early days of realestate.com, or even in the West here in Perth? Could you speak to some of these emerging technologies that you use and why they are important for today's seller to take seriously?
Yes, certainly. Most people are glued to their phones these days.
Yeah.
Literally.
As we look around our room, if we could pan over there. Not that we will, but if you saw off camera there, folks.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and so we have to fit in with the medium that people are engaging with. And so that really is very much video. And we all know the saying, a picture paints 1,000 words. Well, a moving picture, a video, Facebook Live, any of those, they are going to be engaging with many, many, many people. And not only is there the picture to look at, but there's an emotion behind that as well.
With the soundtrack and all of that. Yeah,
exactly.
Nice.
Exactly. And so with our marketing campaigns, we endeavour to really keep to the forefront of what's being offered now. And that is why we do the Facebook Lives, and we do the live videos at the open homes to give people a walk through the home before they even visit it. So when they do come to the open home, it's like their second visit or third or whatever. And then, of course, online as well, with the different properties, we use video a lot as well.
Nice, and I've seen that. There seems to be, like, the Facebook Lives are a very raw look, because it's you and your phone and things like that. Facebook Live has to be like that. And yet on the other side of the coin, there's those professional ones that I've seen of yours. Do each of those have their place? Tell us about those professional ones, because they look pretty expensive. Tell us about those.
Well, I'm glad that you think they are expensive.
They look it.
Because that's the whole intention. We want very premium, very expensive looking videos, and we want some raw, day-to-day engaging with the everyday
And that's your
person.
lives. That's your lives. Right.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. And so, but what we can do is we can give those choices of presentations at a very reasonable price, so that for everyone that looks at it, even though it looks very expensive, we actually get very good costs per click for those videos from the people that look at them.
Right. Are they an optional extra? Like, tell me about, because a lot of our viewers ask me, oh, the agents seem to be saying, oh, do we go in this paper, or do we go in this magazine, or do we go in this special glossy, periodical, or online and video? There seems to be so many things that agents can sometimes offer a consumer. Tell me where video, because I'm really passionate about video. We're here filming a video today about how video stacks up. You mentioned cost per click. Tell us about those metrics in layman's terms, if you could.
Well, Glenn, certainly for every time someone looks at one of those videos and they get the impression that it's a very expensive production, we have actually got an excellent system at the back end, if you like, where we can produce that for any property at a very, very reasonable price. Everyone works on their visuals these days, even or listening to auditory. They listen to podcasts, they watch videos. So most people are not down to reading things quite so much as they used to be.
It's a new consumer.
It's a very, very new consumer out there, and I think it's important to keep up to date with that. And so we're very, very passionate about a range of video styles to approach and attach with or get a connection with every kind of buyer that might be out there.
Yeah, I love it. And certainly as I've been in your area, moving around, even on Facebook, Facebook knows I'm from Queensland, and Facebook knows I'm in your area and starts serving me up Jan Tomelty videos. Have you figured out how to hack Facebook that it only appears when I'm in the area? Because that seems like an advanced marketing skill.
Yes, well, I think it's an important one, and I'm not going to share that one because I don't want everyone knowing the secret.
Yeah, but it's crazy though.
But it's very important, and it's also very important for the sellers to know that we are, even though they may not see me every day, I'm working on their property every single day.
Yeah.
At multiple levels.
I love it. No, omnipresence is certainly your forte. Wherever you look in your area when it comes to property, you're there. Let me ask you this. In your book, you mention this principle called buying the listing. Can you just tell us, A, what buying the listing is and why you made, because I think I even saw a report or a video of you talking about it as well. It seemed to be a real passion of yours that you've seen it as a massive mistake that people can make when transacting a property, in that they're falling for this concept called buying a listing. Can you explain for our viewers what that is and why it's so easy a mistake, I suppose, to fall for sellers that's costing them?
Absolutely. So buying the listing essentially is when an agent goes in and they offer a suggested price or price range well above what the actual current market would dictate.
Right, that a seller could expect to sell for.
That's correct, yes. And the reason that they do that is because they're tugging on the emotional strings of the sellers, and also the fact their emotions is that I need this listing.
Right.
And so if the seller thinks, oh, that's really interesting, if they can get me 50,000 more, then I'll definitely go with them, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
The problem with that, Glenn, is that buyers generally come in 6-week cycles. The first 2 to 3 weeks are critical when a property is launched on the market, because that is when the active buyers out there, they put in their search criteria and up pop the properties. Now, if the property is 50,000, 70,000 over what it should truly be in the current market, that it won't even come up on the search. So not only do the buyers miss the opportunity of seeing that property, the sellers miss the opportunity of the buyers seeing that property. So it's going to be a lose-lose situation for everyone.
Is there a point, because you're talking about search criteria, that makes me think it does appear in the searches, but it appears above. So what does that do? Does it still get seen? I'm just thinking, who is seeing it? They're probably seeing it as the worst property in their search criteria.
Well, they're seeing it as the most expensive one, but they can't really justify it at that price. So they're seeing, well, this property is 50,000 more than this one street away, and they're quite comparable. So why would I pay 50,000 more for that? And then sometimes,
but in my head, though, I'm sitting there thinking, if I'm comparing a property that's 700,000 and I'm comparing it with other properties at 800, I'm sitting there thinking, well, what's this thing doing next to these mansions? You know what I mean?
Well, that's the other side of the coin. Absolutely, yes, that's the other side of the coin. So it's a situation which really, the process that has to follow when the buying of the listing has happened, the process that has to follow is that the market feedback comes in, and which the agent then presents to the seller and says, oh, look, we're not getting the expected dollars that we thought we would. The market feedback that's coming in is not up at the price range where we think it should be. So maybe we need to talk about a price reduction.
Right.
Now,
so
the trouble,
start beating the sellers down.
That's right. So that's right. So, and over that time, the seller then is disappointed, whereas if you'd been honest right up in the beginning, you could have gone through that whole process in a more transparent way, got people involved in the property and fall in love with it, and then at the other end you get them to come up with their price. A bit like a mini auction at the end, but you start off realistically. Buyers are very worldly, very in touch with the market. They know what's value for the dollar in the housing market when they've been looking for even 2 to 3 weeks. And so if they see a property that's well overpriced, they may actually think that the seller's not that keen to sell. They're playing them, and you know, nobody likes to be played. And the other side of the coin is that the sellers are going to be disappointed because they expected a certain figure and now it's come down by 50,000. So really, I would rather miss out on a listing than start with a listing that is not priced accurately in the current market, and therefore you can't have an honest, transparent process and interaction with your buyers to get the ultimate dollar for your owners.
And I love how eventually, once you've got all those buyers in, when it's priced correctly, you drive the price up anyway by your smiling assassinness. Jan, do you think, this is a weird question to ask, I don't know if you've got an answer for this, but let me ask you. Is it naive optimism? Like, is it naivety? Some might say ignorance. Do they not know they're doing it? Or do you think it's deception? That these agents who are overpricing properties in order to win listings, is it naivety and ignorance? Or is it deception and they know what they're doing? I mean, as I say it, I think equally unforgivable. If they don't know but they're ignorant to the fact, that's unforgivable. If they're deceptive, that's completely unforgivable. But either way, do you think it's naivety and not knowing, or do you think they know exactly what they're doing?
I think they do know what they're doing. I think there is deception involved, and unfortunately it gives the whole real estate agent industry genre a very bad name.
And we know we've got the industry's got that.
It has, that's right, yeah, which unfortunately
it's practices like this that has done that?
I believe so, and I think a lot of people find that the interaction with their agent is all gung-ho and it's all about me and this is what I've done and these are the results I've got for various clients. But it's not about the agent, it's about the seller. It's about what they want, and it's about their property and how the agent, through services, can get the absolute best outcome for the seller. It's about the seller.
I love how you do, you know, you sing from the same hymn book in that you do say, look at what I've done for these sellers, but it's almost like you minimise your impact on it, because I've seen you focus on those sellers. I've seen videos of your sellers just, you know, raving on about you. So it's truly a refreshing change when people are used to that reputation that we've seen of people in the property industry, and then they're served up with a refreshing change like yourself. So credit to you. Your reputation, ma'am, is well deserved.
Thanks, Glenn. Thanks.
All right, so now I'm going to get cheeky, Jan. I said to our guys, I'm going to try and hit you up for a copy of the book. So I know that you've got your agent before you need one. It's up there on Amazon, selling there on Amazon, but can I get a couple of copies for our crew here?
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, so guys, there's the link. Go to that link, you get a copy of Jan's book, and yeah, maybe, look, when they're gone, they're gone. So get one while the going's good. Jan, thanks so much for lending us your ear today and your insights. It's been certainly really interesting for me, hopefully for our viewers, I'm sure. And yeah, all the best with continuing to serve those people down in the southern suburbs of Perth.
Thank you very much, Glenn. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Right,
Thank you.
Oh, definitely. No, the honour's all mine. Thank you, Jan. And on that note, guys, another episode of Real Estate Experts in the Can. As always, I hope that was as informative for you as it was for me. There's the bottom line. We don't want to buy through Jan, but we'll sell through her every day, huh? For us investors, don't buy through an agent. Everything that Jan advised in looking for a good negotiator, you do the opposite when you're buying, and you do that when you're selling. All right, guys, on that note, until next time, bye for now.